Standing here, the Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque, one of the most impressive sights of the ancient Maya world. Beyond me is the palace, beyond that the coastal plain, leading onto the Gulf of Mexico. Now the ancient Maya were renowned for their hieroglyphs, for their art, and of course for the spectacular architecture that you see around me. Over 1,000 years ago, Palenque was abandoned and covered in jungle. About 300 years ago, the first Spanish explorers came here and took drawings of some of the most impressive art and architecture at the site.
Then, in the late 19th and early 20th century, came other explorers, this time with cameras, taking incredible photographs. One of the major figures who arrived at the end of the 19th century was Alfred Maudsley, an English archaeologist who made a detailed study of the architecture, hieroglyphic texts, and scenery.
And now, the last 150 years, we've had archaeologists doing excavation after excavation, finding more and more details about this incredible culture.
Nos encontramos en lo que es el Templo de las Inscripciones.
This is the Temple of the Inscriptions, better known as Pakals Tomb. Kinich Hanab Pakal, one of the most important and influential kings of the city of Palenque, commissioned the building of this, his own burial site.
Arqueólogo Alberto Ruz, que en el año de 1950.
The archaeologist Alberto Ruz discovered the tomb in 1949. After unlocking a series of plugs hidden in the floor, he lifted the stone we see here. Then it took Ruz until 1952 to remove all the debris that was blocking the stairway, as the Maya had sealed it so nobody could gain access to the tomb. When Ruz arrived here, he found a triangular stone blocking access to the tomb. He finally managed to move the stone with a crowbar and the help of his workers. Then, when he reached this point, Ruz realized he had discovered a burial chamber with a large and beautiful tombstone. He thought it might be an altar in a place of worship. However, he soon realized that this big stone is independent of the piece under it. And that's when he decided to lift the stone using a jack. This took 24 hours, during which he didn't leave the tomb until the stone was completely lifted. Once elevated, Ruz inserted his flashlight below the stone, and he saw a human skull. It was Pakal's skull.
En esta estructura,
Within this structure, a great discovery was made about 12 years ago of a large funerary chamber deep inside what was a temple, and it's older than the structure on the outer level. This place is also considered very important because the tomb belonged to one of the most ancient rulers of the city. The discovery of the tomb was made using a probe. A video camera was lowered through a small opening in the ceiling and into the tomb vault. It was with this video feed that it was possible to see the contents of the burial: various vessels, remains of jade beads, and skeletal remains of the person buried. The most interesting feature for researchers was the walls of the chamber, covered by multicolored stucco with 9 human figures painted on them. These are incense burners that come from the buildings called the Cross Group, and of particular interest is this piece that comes from the Temple of the Foliated Cross. This is one of the most valuable collections from Palenque, and so far, over 100 objects of this kind have been found. The incense burners were used in ceremonies for communicating with the gods. They're ritual objects. On their upper part was a pot for placing vegetable resins, and blood produced by self-sacrifice. These contents were burnt, and the smoke formed part of the offering given to the gods.
Estamos enfrente a el edificio principal.
This is one of the largest neighborhoods in the city of Palenque. It was inhabited from around 150 CE until about 850 CE. This house has three distinct parts: an exterior area where food and tools were produced, this interior space, which was originally covered by a roof and used for storage, and the innermost space, a domestic area where people slept. In some of these interior areas, we also have stairs that were used to move between the different levels of the buildings, and as time went by, some of them were sealed off. It's the same as in today's houses. When kids are born, we often build an extra room, and when someone leaves home, a room is sometimes turned into a storage space. Something similar happened in those days.
Interior del edificio conocido como el Palacio.
We're inside the building known as the Palace, which is one of the most important structures in pre-Columbian America. It is a series of structures composed of different houses, as they are called, built around yards. The palace was the residence of the ruler and his family, and in addition, it was used to hold public ceremonies. This building in the background is known as the Tower. It's unique because there is no similar structure at any other site within the Maya region. It was possibly used as an astronomical observatory, and it must also have been a vantage point from which to observe the movement of groups of people arriving in the city. Elevated high above the Gulf Plain, and allowing the same general view of the approaches to Palenque, which we see to this day, this tower is another reminder of the great sophistication of the classic Maya at Palenque.